Hey there, everybody. It is nice to see you again. I am back home safe and sound after a week almost in Los Angeles covering E3 for PopZara.com. I do want to thank Nathan from PopZara for not only helping to arrange the trip, but also for covering the expenses and for also making the trip with me, helping me out by taking some pictures and taking some business cards and such while we were out there. He was a big help, and again, I really do appreciate it. Um, so where to begin? Well, first of all, I guess we can talk about Microsoft versus Sony here, Xbox One versus PlayStation 4. Um, I I can't help but to be a bit surprised uh, by the price differential being 500 versus $400. Um, didn't expect that to happen. I expected there to be some kind of lower price skew for Microsoft to be more affordable and to really hit the mass market running, and that just didn't happen. When you combine that with the DRM, with the whole used games thing, with the internet connectivity, and then the games themselves were, with the exception of Titanfall, kind of underwhelming. Rise, of course, a lot of complaints with Connect not working properly and with QuickTime events being so rampant and overused. And then, of course, leading off the show with Metal Gear Solid 5, which wasn't an exclusive but more a multi platform game, so that really didn't help Microsoft's case any. And then Killer Instinct, getting all excited about Killer Instinct and then finding out it's free to play with only one character to start. It was just a comedy of errors for Microsoft, and I'm really not sure what the strategy is there or what Microsoft's next move will be. The prevailing opinion in the social media sphere and across the internet is generally negative. And unless Microsoft can figure that out, it's going to have to adjust its strategy so that it focuses on the mainstream and people that haven't been touched by this wave of negativity. Now, 26 days straight from the reveal forward, it's just been negative news stories, negative opinions, negative press day after day after day, and it's not helping, and that's really too bad. Whereas Sony, on the other hand, had a phenomenal week. $400 for the PlayStation 4, which was received very well, $100 less than the competition. A let the publisher decide DRM strategy, which really started as a we're not in favor of DRM during the press conference, which really made people happy. That's been a bit clarified. Publishers will kind of figure out what it is that they're going to want to do with digital rights management, and that's fine. I don't think that Sony could really put themselves in a position where they could tell their third-party publishing partners, yeah, we're not going to let you do any kind of DRM on our platform because people would jump ship. So I think that that's about as good as you could have asked for. I did get some time to mess with the PlayStation 4 controller while I was playing Pinball Arcade at the Sony booth, and I was very impressed with how it felt. It felt pretty light, felt pretty responsive. I was a little iffy on the triggers, but I do wonder whether it's the triggers on the controller or whether it's the way that Pinball Arcade handled the triggers. As you know, Pinball Arcade uses the triggers for the flippers, and the analog nature of the flippers and the triggers, it didn't seem to translate well at times. So we'll have to see how that turns out. But I do like the way that the controller felt in my hands, so that was good news. Um, all the buzz around E3, around the E3 floor, around fellow media and just folks that I talked to in Los Angeles were generally pro Sony and kind of questioning what Microsoft was going to do going forward. So it really, I guess, E3 kind of reinforced what we were already thinking going in, which was that Sony was kind of the front runner, that Microsoft had some work to do and has a lot of work to do to be able to get out of the hole that it's dug itself in. And Microsoft and excuse me, Nintendo's just kind of there. Not really a big reaction to a lot of what Nintendo did. I really didn't have much of a chance to pay attention to what Nintendo was doing. I was very busy with third-party software and with some other things on the floor. I know that Nathan, my editor, spent some time in the Nintendo booth and did like some of the things that he saw. And if you visit popzara.com in the coming days, I'm sure that you'll be able to see some content from him that'll address it. But from people that I was talking to on the E3 floor and kind of off the record, there really wasn't a lot of enthusiasm about what Nintendo had brought to the table. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But definitely, it's a Sony being the top dog kind of deal, and Microsoft in a little bit of trouble moving forward. So that's what I took away from E3 as far as hardware goes. Software, I did see a ton of stuff. You'll be seeing stuff on popzara.com, excuse me, over the next 3 or 4 days. I put together 11 pieces tonight based on impressions of things that I either saw or played. So what I want to do at this point is go over. I don't have any awards to give, but some things that really stood out to me at the show. Uh, the first thing is Castlevania Lords of Shadow 2. Now, before E3 started, Konami actually put together a pre-E3 online presentation, and Castlevania was part of that. And I was pretty vocal on Twitter talking about how, while the game looked okay, it wasn't a Castlevania game. It should have been a game that was separate of the Castlevania title. I really didn't have any expectations going in, but part of the Konami booth tour was spending some time playing the Lords of Shadow 2 demo, and I can say that I'm now actually very interested in the game after having played the demonstration. And the reasoning is a bit selfish. The reasoning is because of references that are made within the demo, it feels at least like there's a link to the Castlevania games of old versus where we're at now. Recalls to Symphony of the Night, pulled parts of speeches from Dracula's throne room, Dracula and Simon Belmont having that big exchange in the throne room in Symphony of the Night, talking about what is a man, a miserable pile of secrets, and then seeing that speech recounted, or those lines recounted just prior to combat, really kind of got my juices flowing and said, okay, at least it feels a little more like Castlevania now. I'm in Dracula's throne room. I'm fighting off soldiers, so now instead of being a Belmont, I am Dracula, and I'm doing damage that way. And I was more interested. Yes, the game plays a lot like God of War. Yes, it is similar to the first Lords of Shadow game, and yes, I do have to admit there are some technical problems that I saw with the demo. The frame rate wasn't very impressive. Some of the textures were iffy. There was some pixelation in some of the imagery that I saw. The set pieces were very reminiscent to God of War, having to climb a walking assault mech that was knocking down Dracula's castle seemed very God of War-ish. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. I did enjoy what I played. The demo, I believe, went about 15 to 20 minutes, and I did enjoy it. Nathan actually saw me mark out a little bit at some of the Symphony of the Night stuff, and that's maybe what the series needed to get me interested. It needed to have that Castlevania link, and as you'll read in my Pop Zara piece that should go up this week, that's really what kind of flipped the switch for me as far as the series goes. As a matter of fact, when I got home from Los Angeles the next day, I actually went out and I rebought the first Lords of Shadow game, and I'm going to give it another shot. So that's how I know that the demo did what the demo was supposed to do. I am now interested. I am now on board. I am now eager to see what the final product is going to look like. And that's good for Konami, good for Mercury Steam. And we'll see. We'll see what happens going forward. My biggest surprise of the show is a game called Murdered Soul Suspect, which Square Enix is going to be publishing in early 2014. It's not an action game. It is very much an investigation game and a lot of using the old noggin. The lead character is a detective who is killed very early in the game, and his ghost is who the character plays as, or who the player plays the game as, I should say. And you basically have to solve your own murder. And in order to do that, you have to investigate crime scenes, you have to gather evidence. You do something really neat called possession, where you possess non-player characters and you find things out that you couldn't see on scene. For example, you have to possess a key witness in one of the first scenes of the game to know what she's really thinking, because she's too scared and too shaken up to talk to the police and recount the story exactly as it happened. So I thought that was pretty neat. There is some very basic combat with demons where you have to kind of circle around and flank them and approach them from behind in order to dispatch them. It's not necessarily action oriented or twitchy, but it's still very playable, I think, for a wide range of audiences. I like the setting. I like the idea. I like the way the game looks. I liked everything about what I saw. And again, that's Murdered Soul Suspect. That'll be out for PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, and other platforms, I think, in early 2014. So keep your eye on that. And then the really big thing, the thing that for me as a game player that I was looking forward to seeing and didn't disappoint was Hyperkin's Retro N5. I got a chance to play it. I got a chance to see it in action. I got a chance to talk to the product development manager for Hyperkin, and I talked to a couple of other folks on staff there, and was blown away by what I saw. The emulation works great. The upscaling to HD really does look quite good. It's reminiscent to what Backbone did for Sonic's Ultimate Genesis Collection, which came out for the PS3 and the 360 some time ago. I like the way that looks. You can change the way it looks. You can add scan lines if you want. You can add the smoothing if you want, or just keep the original visuals as is. It's multi-regions, so whether you're in the US, whether in the UK, whether you're in Japan, stuff is going to work. I've been assured that weird games like MMC games like Castlevania 3 or the Japanese version of Castlevania 3, which had music glitches and other emulation on other emulation hardware, that stuff's fixed. That stuff's going to be working exactly the way it should. Super FX chip games are going to work. And most importantly, if there are games that don't work and Hyperkin finds out about it, if you let them know, they're going to be able to distribute patches through firmware to be able to get the stuff working. They're going to be continually updating and working on this project so that it's going to be a living, breathing entity, so that retro guys like me, or retro guys or gals like me, will be able to use their collection pretty regularly. There are going to be multiple save states. I believe it's 10 per game, as many as the SD card will allow. If you need to use another SD card or a different SD card, you can copy the operating system, which will be on the SD card that comes with the Retro N5. You'll be able to copy that to the new SD card if it's bigger, so that you'll have more space. It's really going to be user-friendly. I really liked everything about it. I think the only thing that I didn't dig, and it's because the controller isn't finalized yet, is there were some controller issues. Was playing F-Zero, was playing the first Mute City track, and was having some difficulty, and was told by the product development manager is because of the way that the controller was set up, the controller didn't have gradation for left and right as far as light taps left and right versus pressing down hard left and right, so it was almost an absolute left, absolute right, which makes racing games pretty difficult. But other than that, I mean, for less than $100, which is what Hyperkin's shooting for, it's going to be a no-brainer for retro folks. It's not going to necessarily replace the systems you have, especially since there isn't going to be an RCA input. So if you're playing these games on an RCA TV or on a CRT, I should say, you're going to want to keep the original hardware, obviously. But if you have an HD TV, if you're looking for something with less space, maybe something to put in your main game room next to your 360, PS3, PS4, what have you, this is going to be the system to get. And again, that's later this summer. It's from Hyperkin, the Retro N5. Excellent, excellent stuff. You'll see a write-up on Popstar about that. Let me see what else I saw. Yes, DuckTales Remastered is as good as advertised. I was confident it was going to be, and I really didn't have any appointment time with Capcom to play it, but I just happened to be on my way to an appointment. I saw an open demo station for DuckTales Remastered. I stepped in, and I'm glad he did. I played a little bit of the Amazon level. I didn't have a lot of free time, but what really leapt out at me was that it felt more like the cartoon, more like an interactive version of the cartoon than I'd ever seen. I think this was something that Capcom would have been able to love to have done back in 1989, but obviously the technology didn't exist. And now you have the voice work from the original cast, so you have this banter back and forth between Scrooge and between Launchpad, and Scrooge is just belittling Launchpad at every little step, and of course Launchpad is just this aloof pilot who's just having a good time, and you get the true atmosphere of the show, the humor. I laughed out loud more than a few times while playing the demo, and then when you actually start to play the game, It feels just like the original. The physics feel right, the controls feel right, the graphics are cleaned up, and more animations are added. There are some things that WayForward Technologies have added, but it doesn't take away from that original DuckTales feel. It felt very similar to me just picking up the controller in my retro bedroom and playing the original game. As a matter of fact, it might have felt even a little tighter playing this way. So I'm really looking forward to that. And of course, most of you probably are already. You probably didn't need my approval or my 2 cents on the game, but I'm telling you now, if you had any reservations about it, don't. And we just had confirmed over the weekend that there will be a level based on the moon. So that is probably one of the most epic BGM tunes of all time. So I'm really looking forward to the final product, and I congratulate Capcom and WayForward on a good job. I expected greatness, and that's what I got. Let's see what else. I know this is going long, but I have a lot to cover with you guys because it's been a little bit. Banfuse. Don't sleep on Banfuse, everybody, especially if you're a fan of music games and you're pretty serious about music games. It's going to let you to play guitar, bass guitar, or sing. And you'll actually be able to use a real guitar or bass guitar. And the best part of this is that it's going to use actual guitar tablature. So if you're learning to play, if you've never played guitar before, you're going to be able to be taught from the ground up. Banfuse is actually going to be using real life music talent. Slash, of course, from Guns N' Roses, George Lynch from Dokken, Bootsy Collins. Those are just some of the names. Zach Wilde. Those are just some of the names. I know that there are more in the works. It looks like a really cool idea. And the best part to me about Banfuse is that you can do it either as a game where there's a career mode, or you can do it as educational and learning how to play guitar or maybe sharpening your skills. Or for me as a vocalist, you can really use it as a karaoke experience. Uses master tracks, so you can just cut the lead vocals all together and supply your own and have a good time. You can even do it because it's master tracks where if you have a friend that plays guitar and a friend that plays bass, you can shut those three tracks down, supply your own, and basically just kind of jam out like never before. You were kind of able to do that with Rock Band, and Rocksmith took that a bit forward by mixing Rock Band Guitar Hero methodology and using real instruments and cleaning up that whole interface. And it was pretty popular, but this is much better, at least in my opinion. And that's going to be coming out later this year. It's going to be a little bit on the expensive side, and obviously you're going to want to have an actual guitar, actual bass guitar, to get the most use out of it. But definitely keep your eye on it. I was impressed by it, and am hoping that the marketing plan is good so that that it sees success that it deserves. Let's see what else. Ninja Gaiden Z, which is Aiba. That's the game that Mega Man creator Keiji Inafune is helming, and that game is pretty nuts. Imagine an arcade style, like a Twitch style action game, rather than the very technical, stylish action that the Ninja Gaiden games have been to this point. Add in some humor, some of it pretty raunchy, and almost some Bulletstorm style kills, and that's Ninja Gaiden Z. I didn't get my chance to get hands-on with it as I arrived at the booth a bit late, but I did have the game demonstrated for me by some capable folks at Tecmo Koei, and then of course in having a few words with Mr. Inafune himself, I'm a believer. I think that this game scratches an itch that I think some people will enjoy. If you played Yakuza Dead Souls, which I liked, although it is more of a shooter game than a melee game, that's a lot like what this is going to be. It's got zombies in it. It's very twitchy, very not opposite, but very different from what the Ninja Gaiden games have been to this point. And the other thing, it's a very comic style. It's like a comic book style kind of game, very much influenced by The Walking Dead too. So if you're a Walking Dead fan, you might be interested in this, and that's going to be available in 2014. Let's see. And the last thing I think I'll touch on before I jet is visit to the Bethesda booth, which is one of the first things that I did There are two games I think that are going to be worth keeping an eye on. One of them is The Evil Within, which is Shinji Mikami's new project. If you're a survival horror fan, this goes back to the roots of the genre. Limited ammunition, stuff that'll screw with your head, uh, pretty gory, some pretty gross stuff. There's a part in the game after the lead character is captured where he's strung up by his feet, and when he's looking down, you can see and you can hear the blood dripping and collecting in a puddle below you. And then there's this big behemoth monster with a chainsaw that when you cut yourself down, he chases after you. And it's just really freaky, freaky stuff. So you're going to want to keep an eye on that. That is a 2014 game. And then Wolfenstein: The New Order got my attention. It ran on PC when I saw it, when it was shown in the demo, and then out on the booth floor. Uh, Ran like butter. I do like the new personality. I like the new alternate reality that the game showcases. It's a little twisted at times and maybe disturbing for some, but I thought it was pretty decent. And it's very much a first-person shooter, so not to use the Call of Duty comparisons, but that's really kind of what it is. And the really cool thing is that B.J. Blazkowicz, who's always been the silent protagonist type, or kind of without a personality, has more of a personality this time. You hear him get angry, uh, you hear him flirt, or you can feel that romantic tension with one of the other characters in the game. You can sense fear in one part of the game where he's forced to make word association choices with images. It was different, and the uh, I liked the departure from the usual just straightforward run and gun. There was more to it. There was more narrative to it, and I think that it has a shot when it's released later this year. So that's pretty much, I mean, not everything that I saw at E3. There was a ton more, but that's pretty much all I'm going to cover, as I'm already well over 20 minutes. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you guys enjoyed all the E3 coverage. Don't forget to visit popzara.com. That's popzara.com for my content, for Nathan's content, and a whole bunch more as we move forward. And I'll try and do another video later this week, trying to cover things that I missed. If you guys have questions or comments about things that I might have seen on the floor, don't hesitate to leave them in the comments below, and I'll try and address them in a follow-up video later on. Have a great week, everybody, and I'm sure we'll talk soon.